A man of his word, he did. But we're real pleased with Chris Carr, who's the regional political director for the Republican National Committee, fully engaged here in the ground game. That they know that front doors are better than telephones, although there's a role for telephones. So lessons learned in the state party over the years and stuff like that appear to be coming together real well, and so we're happy. Very gratified with how the fundraising has gone. You know, it was a little bit tough before June 18th. Although we thought we were doing as well as people who said they were good fundraisers. But I can tell you that in the 12 days after the 18th, there'll be a report that's released tomorrow, FEC report. We were trying to be able to show over $100,000, and actually we're going to be over $130,000. Race is going to cost a lot more than that. That's a pretty good 12 days for somebody who's not very good at raising money, though, I think. And I can tell you that the 12 days after that have been pretty good too, and the next 12, and so we're blowing and going, and thank you guys for the role that you have played in the fundraising stuff. Got a good team together, Washington consultants that are out of the a consultant, Chris is going to be upset that I don't know his last name since I spent 3 days with him. Chris Hannick was with the Republican operative in Washington, starting back in the Bush and Reagan days. Most recently with Haley Barber, stuff like that. Good credentials, been a phenomenal help. Have a PAC fundraiser back there, fully engaged. John McLaughlin, who's Eric Cantor, the guys whose name you might have heard, apparently upset the president yesterday. I was going to call him and say, yeah. There's a rumor that he upset the president yesterday at the White House. But the president walked out. It's like, well, you live here, shouldn't he be walking out? But anyhow, yeah. So Eric Cantor's pollster, John McLaughlin is on board. Been in the field, going back in the field. Very gratified by that. Had an opportunity to address the House Republican Conference on Tuesday morning, which is what they call their caucus. Neat group of folks, very down to earth. I was a little nervous about talking to that group. Not as nervous as I am about going before a group like this or any of the women's clubs. But anyhow, it went well. I was able to relax and had like 45 seconds, which was probably plenty with that group. They were getting ready to talk about the debt limit. So when I opened up my remarks there, I said, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Leader, thank you for the opportunity to speak to your group. I've been asked to limit my comments to an hour and a half, so perhaps you won't be able to get to your agenda, which some of them thought was a good idea. But anyhow, I digress a little bit just to say that I am gratified to this point how things have come together. Volunteer groups are doing good. My sister who is 6 years younger, that I used to give just a ton of a bad time to when she was smaller and stuff like that, but evidently she learned a lesson from it because she's pretty tough and she's pretty resilient. She's working over there as a volunteer at headquarters and helping out with the schedule, which was an area that needed a few more lug nuts and a little more baling wire, and so I'm sleeping. I'm going to sleep 10 minutes earlier at night. I'm not sleeping any longer, so I'm going to sleep about 1 o'clock at night after thinking about, I wonder what Jim DeGraffenreid would do with the bylaws in this situation. or the platform. But so anyhow, I say all that to say this. Despite the fact it was tough to get back from D.C., things are going well. I appreciate the fact that I was on the calendar tonight because I think it's a good time for an update as far as the mechanics of the campaign and how you win the race. And how you win the race, folks, is it's nice to have people say, I support you. It's nice to have them look at the history. Harry Reid lost to Sharon Engle in this district by almost 20,000 votes, but you can't take any of that for a given. And the bottom line is this: if your people don't show up and vote, it doesn't matter. It's the side that turns out the most of their voters that wins. And we're going to keep doing our level best to give them those reasons to show up and vote and change that direction from what's going on. Continue with that change that you saw after the 2010 elections in the House, when Boehner and Cantor and McCarthy and crew took it over, to keep giving them some more. I can tell you that they're mindful of the fact that when you win 86 seats or something like that, coming in the follow-on, sometimes it's a little tough to hold on to all of those. But they're fired up. The committee chair, House Republican Election Committee Chair Congressman Sessions from Dallas, Texas, is an absolute perpetual motion machine. Said something when I went and met him, and he said, well, I called you on the afternoon of the 18th or whatever, and congratulated you and you know, left you my numbers and stuff like that. And he said, you haven't called me back. And I said, we were sitting in his office, you know, where clearly I had the advantage. And I said, well, Mr. Chairman, I said, I kind of assumed that maybe you were kind of an important guy and you had a few things going on back here now with, you know, things aren't exactly clicking along wonderfully, and you've got a little bit of shovel work to do. So, you know, I just thought it was nice of you to do that. I was encouraged. Your staff's been very helpful, but I figured you had better things to do. And he, I don't remember what his exact words were, but it was something along the lines of, when I call you, you better call me. So that was on Monday. So Tuesday, I called his assistant, and she said, well, is there a message? And I said, yeah, could you tell him that I need to get about 3 calls in just so I can get a call or 2 ahead of him, since we're doing this keeping score on calls thing. And she had a good sense of humor, so she did that. And then I called his cell phone number, which thankfully he didn't answer. I left a message saying, hey, this is my second call. I think I'm one up on you. And then made the final call before I left, and it was all going well until I saw him at lunch yesterday, and he waves me over, and I go, I don't know if I can talk to you because I've called you more than you've called me now. And he goes, yeah, that's great. Just make sure the next time I call you, you call me back, and that doesn't count for the stuff. So it's going well, but we've got the last 45 days, and we need to close the deal, if you will. I have responsibilities to close that deal, and we're going forward full blast. I phenomenally appreciate the history of this central committee and this county in that regard. I need you to think also, though, of ways how you can expand those networks out into the Truckee Meadows especially, but into Lyon County and surrounding areas, because the deal is we're going full bore all the way through the end. Want to be as strong as possible, leave no stone unturned, so that the best thing that can happen is you get up in the morning, or you get at least take a shower in the morning on the 14th and go, okay, that was good, what have you done for me lately? It's time to start it all over again. But it has to be with a win to keep Dean Heller CR and send somebody back there who has been through the process, who understands the mix for the budget and stuff like that for the last 14 months of that term. Because I'll tell you this, and then if there are questions, we can do that, unless I've already overstayed my welcome. I can tell you this, the bottom line is there is a lack of credibility when you hear stuff that comes from that direction these days. And I'll give you the best example I can give you is this, is when you do the 2011 budget, and you know that you're $1.4 trillion, something like that, upside down for that year, and people are looking at you with a straight face saying, we cut $66 billion, and that's the largest cut in modern time. You know, I know that most of us were not around when we started the math proficiency exam in Nevada to graduate from high school, but even I understand. It's like, don't talk to me about $66 billion when you're $1.4 trillion upside down for this year. And so there's a lot of political drama going on now in terms of what'll happen if you don't do this and what'll happen if you don't do that. But the facts still remain this. With that credibility lapse or lack, the facts still remain this. You can't keep spending $1.4 trillion more than you have every year. And you can't keep raising the limit to keep financing it. Much of it offshore with your biggest competitors for superpower status, economically and militarily in the nation. That is, you don't have to go to a lot of graduate level political science classes to know that is bad policy. And that direction needs to change. So when you see the stuff, and it's been pretty robust the last few days, of markets are going to crash, or this or that's going to happen, and stuff like that. And I guess the thought that I will leave you with before we go to questions is this. I find it phenomenally intriguing that knowing what happened in 2008 in the financial markets and the practices that were going on that led to that, and followed on by the bailout stuff and the TARP stuff, which is a big chunk of the deficit that we are now dealing with that went to that sector, didn't go to Main Street in Douglas County, didn't go to Main Street in Minden or Gardnerville or Yarrington or any place else like that. Increased the debt for all that bailout for that sector, to have those same people turn around now as the financial sector and start playing a role in this debt limit thing and say, if you prioritize how you're going to pay, who you're going to pay, we may downgrade your bond rating, I find is a phenomenal slap in the face of most of the people of this country to say, after we put money in to bail you out, you're now going to come in on the side of financial responsibility. This ought to make you all sleep well. Yeah. You're going to come in on the side of, well, we think you need $2 trillion more in debt or things are going to get really bad. Think of that. We think you need $2 trillion more in debt or things are going to get real bad. And here's the last piece of red meat. And I know this will get to the people I want it to get to. I'm just guessing that it might. Remember all that stuff about Social Security's fine? Yeah. And quit picking on Social Security? Well, let me tell you what. 2 nights ago, when the President of the United States is talking to somebody and says, well, you know, we send out about 70 million checks for all this stuff, and if we don't get $2 trillion more in credit, I can't tell you if those checks are going to go out. Note to self, your cash flow in Social Security, quit lying to me about everything's fine till 2023, or you wouldn't be using those checks as hostage material right now in 2011. But that's the president saying it, and remember, we started out with credibility issues. So, with that, if you have any questions, excuse me, as long as they don't deal with, you need a tailor, you look awful, and you look tired, that's all been done. So let's go on to something else. Yes?
Okay, I have something really good to tell. I went up to Incline Village and heard Brian Sandoval and Brian Kurlicki on Tuesday night, and everybody that went, there were over 100 people there, all got a sticker that said Amodei for Congress as they walked in the gate.
That's great.
And we all wore Amodei for Congress stickers, so I thought that ought to make you feel good.
Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to put anybody stickers. I want to say one more thing real quick too. A big thank you to the governor, the lieutenant governor, all the Republican members of the legislature, including even Jane Settlemeyer, for their endorsement after the 18th. You know, that meant a lot because there was a lot of, well, you know, what's going to happen and how many people and that sort of stuff and that sort of thing. So that was phenomenally humbling and gratifying after that state party convention vote, the meeting vote, and then to have those folks where they are has been just been great in terms of, and by the way, there won't be many articles written about this, but maybe. You know that stuff, it's like Republicans are always divided, and you know, they eat their own and all that other sort of stuff. Well, guess what? I mean, it's too early to, but it's like, you know what, I don't see a lot of Republicans running around with Republicans for the treasurer and things like that. So let's keep that up. We are trying to, in a quiet way, it's like, you know, you can have your battles about whatever you want, but that kind of 80% rule, if we're friends 80% of the time, then, you know, the other 20% of the time, we can go somewhere and have that out. But let's not let the quest of the perfect be the enemy of the good. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and they both also said vote for me.
They did? Hey, one other thing I want to do too publicly is I was gone, but I want to thank publicly Commander Kurt Lippold for his endorsement in the last few days. That means a lot in terms of sending messages to the other side of the fence. Yes?
The president gave 3 really crappy choices for whether or not to raise the debt ceiling. Do you think the Republicans are going to stick to their guns on not? It seems like some people are starting to waver a little bit. How are you feeling about that since you were just
Well, you know, the funny thing about a lot of those folks back there is they are kind of in touch with their own feelings as opposed to, you know, this is a team sport. I seriously, it's a team sport. Not that, you know, everybody should say their piece and they should work hard for what they believe, but this is a time when I think it's like, I mean, it can't be a surprise that most of the media, this is not news, it's just a new issue, that most of the media is, oh my gosh, you know, what's going to happen on August 2nd or 3rd? And so you look at the numbers and you say, there's money to take care of the debt service. There's money to take care of Social Security, even though it's okay. There's money coming in, you know, you talk income versus outflow. There's money to take